So I hung out with friends who were similar to the way I thought. And the way we defined cool was how many girls you can get with. That's the way you define cool. That's how I grew up. So I lived this life. I lived this life of hunting after women. I also lived this life of, in high school, I started to binge drink excessively. Every weekend, started to have parties. You know, I was a partier. I was. Complete partier. If you ever go to a party and you see those guys on like the ping pong table going like this, that was me. That was me back then. But anyways, so I started to live this life, and it wasn't until college that I realized that what's happening to me is something that I can't seem to get away from. Meaning, I was feeling more and more depressed, and it took more and more of these little things, of these temptations to temporarily satisfy me. So I thought my happiness lied in going out and drinking with my friends. And so I would go to uptown, I would go to the Attic, I would go to all these bars. You know? And I thought my happiness was with them, right? But I noticed that, and I'm going to get back to this now, the wage of sin is death. I noticed that the more that I sinned, the more I was dead. Right? Sin, as we all know, as we should know, we're all Catholic, we should know that sin breaks our relationship with God. And it breaks our relationship with God where we really are dead. But I'm not talking about that dead. The dead that I was feeling was a dead that I was losing everything. My personality was changing. I wasn't the kind, person that I used to be, very snobby. I was also losing a lot of material stuff. Everything was taken away from me, pretty much. And just like the video showed us how everything was being taken away, I can attest to that. I can. Everything was taken away from me. So I reached this bottom point where I thought to myself, I need to change. I cannot live like this anymore. But it was hard for me because I was surrounded by friends who didn't want to change. I was surrounded by people who went out, who their weekend started on Thursday. And that's who I hung out with. And it was hurting me to try to break away from them because I was so close to them. And I thought, well, I'll never meet other people if I try to break away. But I know I have to. Something keeps pulling me away. I'm not happy. And I thank God that I was able to realize this, because some people don't realize this. If you don't, really take a look at your situation, where you're at. So I started to do all these things, right? And I finally pulled away. I was able to pull away. I was able to join a community, right? I was able to go to St. Thomas More. I took the initiative to go out and to really start all over again. And guess what, guys? God gave me life again. He did. He gave me life again. I was dead. There were times where I almost literally did die. But he gave me life again, and the fact that he sustained happiness in me. Right? I could be having a bad day. I really could. I could just fail an exam. You know what? I just failed an exam, and someone just bumped into me in the hallway, and I just feel like just grabbing them and just throwing them down. Sorry, kind of carried away, but what God has done in my life is that even if I'm having a day like that, my heart is still joyful. I am dead serious. I am still happy. And I have never felt like this, ever. I can still, every day, even when I'm sad, still be happy in my heart, still love others. Even though I may be a little bit depressed one day, you're going to have that, we're human. but I can still be lovable to others. So I want to challenge you guys, and I want to wrap this up, because sometimes I can talk forever. I want to challenge you guys. If you want to change your life, if you want to be a better person, if you want to grow, then come to Him. Come to Him. I know since I was able to really grow in faith and really find Him, at first I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I was just going with emotions. And I'm so glad I did, because He's blessed my life so much. He really has. I have nothing to complain about. Nothing at all. You know? He's put me in leadership positions. He's given me, for me, material wealth. He's given me everything I've ever wanted. And He keeps me happy. You know? So I want to challenge you guys, if you're looking for more, which if you don't have Christ, believe it or not, you are looking for more. Come to Him and follow Him. So, we're good.
Yeah.
So real quick, before we do announcements, does anybody have any burning questions or anything that they want to revisit real quick or whatever? Yes?
Is it a sin to break the law?
Yes.
Always? Like, say you have an obligation by law to report, like you were working some kind of service where you have to report to use and undocumented here, but you don't do that. Is that a sin, or is it doing the right thing?
Yeah, when it comes to this kind of matters, it's very situational. So if you think about the Sabbath, when the scribes and the Pharisees were saying to Jesus, they were telling Him, "Why are your disciples eating on the Sabbath?" Right? And He gives this beautiful parable, and He says about the lost sheep. He says, "Which one of you, even on the Sabbath, if a sheep were to go over into a ditch, you would not pick it up?" The Sabbath was a holy day, and you couldn't do any work. But yet Jesus is still saying it's very situational in those regards, right? So if you're going to break the law, first of all, you should never break the law. But if you absolutely have to for a moral right, for something good, right, that there's no way out of it, then yeah, that's okay.
I'll throw a little bit of theology to the question. The scholastic thinkers said there's four kinds of law. There's eternal law, right? There's kind of like this law that God has. There's divine law, like the commands that God gives us. There's the natural law, the order in the world according to God's creation. And then there's civil law, or the law of government. And so the law of government only holds weight in as far as it's in line with those other forms of law that we find in creation, God's command, then eternally in the nature of God Himself. So an example would be like, in our country, there's another law that allows abortion. That's not a law. It's just because, let's for example, because the government says it's okay doesn't mean that it is okay. The government doesn't create reality, but reality is a certain way, and then law should simply uphold the nature of things. So if the law doesn't match the eternal law, then it's not something we're bound by.
Is it quick?
Yeah. I just want to say it's even more simpler than that. Because the laws of God are higher than the laws of men, and where the laws of men conflict with God, choose God's laws.
God rules. Okay, so for the next part, Rob, how many? All right, so if this is your first night at Veritas, I want you to stand up. Okay. It's your second time at Veritas, stand